have given me this opportunity to share my views and my knowledge about leprosy and our physiotherapist role. First of all, I would like to inform you all that I am working at National Leprosy Eradication Program from past 5.5 years. And when I got selected for this job, seriously, I personally also don't know much about the role of physiotherapy in leprosy. But after getting trainings from government and working exclusively for leprosy patients, I now know that physiotherapy plays a very important and crucial role for the assessment and treatment of leprosy patients. So today I will be sharing my knowledge and my views with you all. So thank you for joining me, and let's hope I share some good new prospects about physiotherapy in leprosy. So to begin with, just I would like to tell the basic facts about leprosy. As you all know that leprosy is also known as Hansen's disease. It is a chronic infectious disease which is caused by Mycobacterium leprae. Leprosy mainly is taken by a Greek word which means lepra, which means scaly. And Hansen's is the name of a physician, Gerhard Armer Hansen, who first identified the Mycobacterium leprae. Leprosy mainly affects three main parts of the body, that is the skin, the peripheral nerves, and occasionally mucosa of the respiratory tract. And leprosy is a very debilitating disease because it can cause a permanent and progressive physical disability. First, we come about what is the source. Man is the only source of Mycobacterium leprae, means one man or one person is the only one who can transfer Mycobacterium leprae to another person. There is no other source than that. And then is the transmission of infection. Leprosy is transmitted from untreated leprosy affected person to another susceptible person through droplets. Droplets mainly via the respiratory tract. Next is the portal of entry. Respiratory route appears to be the most probable route of entry of the bacilli. Like any other bacilli or virus, it's also the entry portal is respiratory route. Now, very important, it is the incubation period of leprosy bacteria. The leprosy bacteria has a variable incubation period from few weeks to even 20 years. This is why it is very difficult to eradicate leprosy from a country or from the world, because the incubation period of the bacteria is very large. But the average incubation period of the disease is said to be about 5 to 7 years. Now we come to epidemiology. Unfortunately, India contributes around 60% of the total global burden of disease. Means India has lots of patients and still we are getting new patients every month. India detected as many as like 1,26,164 new leprosy cases during the year of 2017 and 18, which is quite a large amount. Now, age leprosy can occur at any age, but is usually seen in people between 20 to 30 years of age. Gender, as you know, as all like many of the infections, males are more affected as compared to females. Next is the immunity. Immunity plays a very important role as any other infection. If there is a greater immunological status of an individual, then will be a decrease in chances that he will be affected by leprosy. Next is the socioeconomic factors. Mainly, leprosy is a disease generally associated with poverty and related factors like overcrowding, means where the person are very closely living with each other, there are the more chances of spreading leprosy among them. Now we come to pathogenesis of leprosy. Pathogenesis means when the bacilli, and pathogenesis means like how the bacilli enters the body and how it acts inside the body. First, bacilli enter the body usually through respiratory system. And very important thing that after entering the body, the bacilli migrate towards the neural tissue and enters into the Schwann cells. Like this is very important. Leprosy, we see like it is a skin disease or dermatological disease, but mainly it affects the nervous tissue. So it should also come under neurology because nerves are the main which gets affected from leprosy. Now, bacilli starts slowly moving within the cells, like the Schwann cells, and they gets multiplied inside. And if cell-mediated immunity is high of a person, and if he has a strong immune response, then it does not affect much, and it affects only the nerves and the skin. Only the skin lesion may appear. But if there is a weak immune response in a person, then Mycobacterium leprae multiplies and affects many other organs. Now, very important, you all should see this. These are the cardinal signs of leprosy, how we detect if somebody has got leprosy. First and foremost sign is the hypopigmented or reddish skin lesion with a definite loss of sensation. Means there will be a lesion, as you can see in this photograph, that there will be a lesion which will be hypopigmented or reddish, and if we touch or if we touch through a pen or some thing, then there will be a loss of sensation inside this lesion. And very importantly, second cardinal sign is the involvement of peripheral nerves, not the deep nerves, only the peripheral nerves. Peripheral nerves has thickening of nerves, loss of sensation to the area where the nerve has been is supplying, and weakness of the muscle, that is hand, feet, or face muscles. So these are the main signs of the peripheral nerves which we see for the detection of leprosy. And last but not the least, and it is very important, there will be a presence of Mycobacterium leprae in the slit skin smear. Now, what is a slit skin smear? The skin, a small portion of skin from the lesion or from the earlobe is scraped and it is stained by carbon fission, as Mycobacterium leprae is an acid fast bacilli. So it gets red color stained, and then we confirm that okay, this person has got a leprosy disease and he has to be treated. Now, this is the classification of disease. Leprosy has got numerous classification, but now the government and all the bodies who are working for leprosy has come down to this two main classification of leprosy. First is the paucibacillary and second one is the multibacillary. So now how we can classify according to the skin lesions. If the skin lesions in the body are from number 1 to 5, then it is paucibacillary. The peripheral nerve involvement, if there is only one nerve is involved, then it is paucibacillary. And according to skin smear, the skin smear should be negative at all sites. Then it will be called as paucibacillary. Now for multibacillary, the skin lesion obviously has to be 6 and above. Peripheral nerve should be more than one nerve involvement, and skin smear should be positive at any site. You know, you can from the earlobe or from the skin lesion, any site, the skin smear should be positive. Then we confirm that this kind of leprosy is multibacillary. You can identify according to the name. Paucibacillary means a little amount of mycobacterium is present, and multibacillary means a lot of amount of bacteria are present. Now, WHO, World Health Organization, has given us a disability grade, how to grade the patients according to their disability which is caused by leprosy. So this is very important. You can see there are two type of like discrimination. First, we have the grade for hand and feet, and second is the grade for eye. Now, first you can see the zero grade, hand and feet, where there is no loss of sensation. Will be no loss of sensation in hand or feet or any sole or like palm of hand, and there will be no visible deformity, only the lesions will be present, then the grade will be 0. Then next one is the grade 1. There will be loss of sensation. Loss of sensation will be present, but no visible deformity. And for grade 2, there will be visible deformity or damage present. Then there will be grade 2. These are for hand and feet. Now for eye. Eye has only two grades, 0 and 2. 0, there will be no problem due to leprosy in the eye. And grade 2, there will be any problem, like if vision problem, patient will not be able to count fingers at the 6 meters, or there will be blinking absent, or legophthalmos is unable to close the eye. If this is present, then the grade will be second grade. Now, what is the treatment, which medical treatment, drugs which we are given for leprosy? So mainly there is a therapy which is to be given, that is multi-drug therapy, which we commonly and known as MDTs. MDT or multi-drug therapy mainly consists of three main drugs, that is rifampicin, dopamine and clofazimine. These three drugs are given in different forms and different kind of patients. Like you can see two blister packs here. The green one is for paucibacillary and the red one is for multi-adult blister pack. In paucibacillary, there are only two kind of drugs, that is rifampicin and dapsone, and it is a 6-month treatment. That is, patient is given only 6 blister packs. And for multibacillary, there are three drugs, that is rifampicin, clofazimine, and dapsone. And this pack is for 12 months. Like patient will be treated for 12 months. Now we come to our role. What is the major role of physiotherapy in leprosy? First and foremost, the main role is the assessment of nerve function. We are the main persons who assess the motor and sensory functions of the nerve. We strengthen the weak muscle. And first, to prevent contracture, physiotherapy is very important to prevent contracture and to decrease the contracture if they are present. And next, to identify the eligible patient for reconstructive surgeries, the surgeries which are to be done for leprosy patients. Then if the surgeries are to be done, then there will be pre-op and post-op physiotherapy. Then after this, we give restoration of function and to educate the patient in the importance of techniques of self-care. Now we come to nerves affected in leprosy. What are the main nerves? Main nerves affected in the leprosy, you can see first trigeminal, facial, great auricular, ulnar, median, superficial radial, common peroneal, and posterior tibial. See, all these nerves are superficial nerves. The Mycobacterium bacilli mainly affects the areas of the body which are colder areas. Like they don't affect the deep nerves which are very inside the muscle bulk or close to the bones. These nerves are superficial, that is why they get affected in the leprosy. So first and foremost is the nerve examination, that is nerve palpation. First and foremost, we palpate the nerve. What main signs or points we see? First, we palpate the thickening. Second is the tenderness, and third is the consistency of the nerve. What is the method of the palpation? First and foremost, always these are nerves are palpated over the bony prominence with the pulp of the fingers, just these 3 fingers we use, and we palpate across the course of the nerve and always compare both the side. Like if we are palpating the right, we should also palpate the nerve on the left side to compare between the two, and always while palpating should look at the patient face to check for any tenderness. So these are the 3 points. We check the thickening of the nerve, if the nerves are thickened, if the nerve are tender, or we see the consistency. Consistency means if the nerve is flat or nodular, or there any change in the consistency, then we palpate according to that. Next, nerve function assessment consists of sensory testing and motor testing. For sensory testing, see, you can see these 2 figures. We sensory test on the palm of the hands and sole of the feet, and these are the point. We take the tip of a ball pen and we put over these specific points and ask the patient whether they are feeling the tip of the ball pen. We don't use any pricking pin or anything like that. Just by the tip of the ball pen, we use to test the sensation of these palm and the sole. So this is the sensory testing, and for motor testing, we simply do voluntary muscle testing, that is graded muscle testing. We can also do those 5 muscle grade, but to simplify, there are 3 main grades, that is strong, weak, and paralyzed. Strong means patient is able to move the limb against full resistance. Weak, able to perform the movement but not against resistance. And paralyzed means not able to perform the movement at all. So now these are the main nerves, how we test. First is the trigeminal nerve. Trigeminal nerve supplies the cornea of the eye. So we test by this corneal reflex. For this corneal reflex, we stand just at the side of the patient and we use a small cotton swab and just we like very lightly brush at the corner of the eye, and if the patient blinks, then it means the sensation is present, and if the blinking is absent, it means the corneal sensation is not present and trigeminal nerve is affected. For facial nerve we do ask the patient to blink his eyes, to close his eyes, like simply if he's sleeping, lightly close the eye. If he is able to do, then we ask the patient to close the eyes with much power, and we try to resist the closure of the eye, like in this photograph. If the out of resistance also the patient is able to do, then we say it is strong. And if the patient only can close the eyes but not against the resistance, then it is weak. And if there is no closure of the eye, then we say then it orbicularis oculi is paralyzed, which means the facial nerve is affected. Now we come to ulnar nerve examination. Ulnar nerve examination, as you can see in the first photograph, the ulnar nerve is palpated just above and posterior to the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Here there is ulnar group, you all know. Here we palpate the ulnar nerve. And for muscle testing, in the second photograph you can see, in this the patient is asked to just take out his little finger. If he's able to take out his little finger, then he give a slight resistance, which means if he's able to do this, then the muscle is strong. If he doesn't able to do but still he's able to take out a little finger, then it is weak. And if it is not able to take out his finger at all, then it is paralyzed. And the third photograph, you can see the ulnar nerve sensory testing. For sensory testing, we test for the at the palmar anterior part of the palm, for the little finger and half of the ring finger. This is the main area for the ulnar nerve, and same at the posterior. So this is the area we test for the sensory examination for ulnar nerve. Then we go to medial nerve. Median nerve is palpated at the wrist and just lateral to the palmaris longus tendon here. It is palpated here. You palpate here. If the nerve is thick or is tender, then patient will be able to say that okay, he is having pain and thickening, and you can feel it when you palpate here. And for voluntary muscle testing, as you can see in the other photograph, the patient is asked to abduct the thumb away or take the thumb away from the palm. And if he's able to do this, you just have to press here against resistance. He will able to do, then it is strong. And if he's not able to do anything and the thumb is lying like this, then the median nerve is affected and thumb is in paralyzed. That is eighth thumb. You all know that. And for sensory testing, you can see in this photograph, for the palm, anterior side of the palm, whole of the palm except the portion which is supplied by ulnar nerve, that is thumb, index finger, middle finger, and lateral half of the ring finger. This area is supplied by the median nerve, and similarly at the dorsum of the hand. So this is median nerve examination. Next is the radial. Radial nerve is palpated at the radial groove. Radial groove is posterior. So where the deltoid, bulk of the deltoid ends, just go at the posterior part of the humerus, and then there you palpate the radial. And for voluntary muscle testing, you ask the patient to make a fist and then extend the wrist. And if he's able to do this movement, you resist this. And if he's able to resist against resistance, if he's able to do the wrist extension, means the patient is okay and his radial nerve is doing fine. Uh, and last photograph, you can see the radial nerve sensory testing. Radial nerve supplies the back of the palm, leaving the area where the ulnar is supplied, back of the whole of the palm on the thumb also. So this area we test for the radial nerve. Then lateral popliteal nerve. Lateral popliteal nerve is a very important nerve because it affects the leg or the lower limb. Lateral popliteal nerve is palpated, as you can see in the first photograph. Lateral popliteal nerve is palpated against the head of the fibula. The patient is asked to flex the knee, lightly flex 10 to 20 degree, and the examiner palpate across lateral side on the head of the fibula. There you have to palpate for lateral popliteal. Now for voluntary muscle testing, the patient is asked to dorsiflex. As you all know, that lateral popliteal nerve supplies the dorsiflexus of the foot. So we ask the patient to dorsiflex. If the patient is able to do, we resist, or if is not able to do at all, then there will be a foot drop or paralysis of the dorsiflexus. And third photograph, you can see all the sensory area which is supplied by the lateral popliteal nerve. Next is the posterior tibial nerve. Posterior tibial nerve is palpated. You can see in the first photograph, it is just over the ankle, just lateral to the medial malleolus. Medial malleolus, there you have to palpate this, and you then ask the patient for any tenderness. If he feels a thickening or tenderness, then he's able to do. And for voluntary muscle testing, we ask the patient to just spread out his toes. If he's able to spread out his toes, and then we resist, as you can see in the photograph, and then if he's able to resist and spread out the toes, then we say that okay, the posterior tibial nerve is not affected and the muscles are quite strong. And for posterior tibial nerve, we for sensory testing, we test over the sole of the foot, and this blue area, if you see on the slide, this area is supplied by posterior tibial nerve, that is just below the heel. So for sensory testing, we test here for the posterior tibial nerve. Now next slide, these all are the nerve examination. Now we come to impairment seen in epilepsy. There are two types of impairment, that is primary impairment and secondary. Primary, by the name you can identify. Primary impairment occurs as a direct effect of Mycobacterium repti, like loss of sensation हो गया, या loss of eyebrows. These are the primary impairment. And for secondary impairment, if primary impairments are neglected, then secondary impairment occurs, that is ulcers or contractures. Now, how secondary impairment of limbs occur? There will be nerve damage. Nerve damage occur, loss of sweat, loss of sensation, and loss of motor function. Means all three functions will be lost if the nerve is damaged. Autonomic nervous function, sensory function, and motor function. So if there is loss of sweat, then crack will appear, and that will lead to ulcer. And if there is loss of sensation, so if there is undue injury or pressure on that area, then also it leads to ulcer. And if there is loss of motor function, that causes weakness or paralysis, which can later on cause contractures. So these are the secondary impairment of limbs. And now secondary impairment of eye. Secondary impairment of eye. Secondary impairment of eye. First impairment primary impairment, if the nerve is damaged, facial nerve is damaged, then it will lead to leg ophthalmos, or if trigeminal nerve is damaged, then it will lead to corneal anesthesia. Both of these causes exposure keratitis, means the patient will not able to blink. So if he is not able to blink, then the cornea will be affected, which can lead to corneal ulcer and which even can cause blindness. That is the secondary impairment. Slide. Slide is not actually working. Will you be able to see the next slide or not?
Slide is visible.
With the next slide, after the secondary impairment.
Okay, please change the slide once.
1 second.
Yeah, it is changing. You
It
can
is
see the next slide,
changing,
deformities in leprosy.
leprosy, है ना? If you don't see, just tell me, है ना? Deformities in leprosy. Now, what these are all the deformities of leprosy. Like if facial nerve is affected, then patient will not be able to close the eyes and like ophthalmos occur. If the trigeminal nerve is affected, then there will be loss of sensation over the cornea. And in hand, these are the main nerve: ulnar, median, and radial. If ulnar nerve is affected, then fourth and finger will be clawing. That is called ulnar claw hand. And if the median nerve is affected alone, then patient will not able to abduct the thumb or to touch the opposite finger. Then, or there will be eighth thumb deformity. And if both ulnar and median nerve are affected, then it will cause complete claw hand. Like this, it occurs like this, complete claw hand. And if radial nerve is affected, there will be wrist drop. Now for foot, if the lateral popliteal nerve is affected, then it will cause foot drop and loss of sensation over the dorsum of the foot. And if the posterior tibial nerve is affected, then the deformity is claw tooth and loss of sensation over the sole of the foot. So these are the main deformities in the leprosy. Hello, Himanshu, can you see the next slide?
Yes, ma'am. We are on the deformity in leprosy slide.
Okay, now next slide is not coming out. Something went wrong.
We are on the same slide, ma'am.
Same slide, no?
Yes,
Okay. Let me see why it is not changing.
okay. Please try the previous slide. Is this coming?
No, previous slide is also not coming.
Okay, maybe it is hand up. You can try resharing of the screen. Yeah, you can stop sharing and then reshare.
Stop share and then resharing.
Yeah, ma'am. Yes.
आइलेक्स है क्या? अटक गया यार. हाँ, ये कुछ स्क्रीन शेयर नहीं हो रही.
Yes, ma'am. Screen has been shared now.
Now you can see my screen.
Yes, ma'am. Deformity in leprosy. Yeah, the slide is changing now. Facial nerve deformity.
Okay, now you can see, no?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Slides are changing.
Okay, thank you. Facial nerve deformity.
Yes, ma'am.
Facial
We are
nerve
on the leg of
deformity.
ophthalmos.
Yeah. For facial nerve, if the facial nerve damages, then leg ophthalmos occur, means the patient will not able to close his eye. Now for this, what exercises we do? We do the exercises of orbicularis oculi. The active and active assisted exercise, we ask the patient to close the eye tightly and hold it for 10 to 20 counts and repeat the same exercise for 5 to 10 times every hour. And if he's not able to do, then we help him to do the same by doing the passive exercise. The patient asks the patient to close the eye, and patient should place his index finger, as you can see in the photograph. The patient places index finger at the lateral side of the eye and gently pull the eyelid laterally so that it closes. This is the facial nerve exercises for eye, orbicularis oculi. Now next deformity, as you can see, is the ulnar nerve deformity. There are two types of claw hand. First one is the ulnar claw hand, and second one is the complete claw hand if the medial nerve is also affected along with it. Now for this, the ulnar nerve exercises, what all muscles are affected if the ulnar nerve is damaged, like abductor digiti minimi, interossei, lumbricus, forefoot, flexor digitorum profundus, flexor carpi, ulnaris. For this, you all know the active exercise, just patient is asked to abduct and adduct these fingers as much as possible. And if it's not able to do the active assisted, the patient is asked to like just flex the MCP joint about at the 90 degree, and this is the lumbrical position. And after doing this, we are able to flex this for him, and then we ask the patient to just flex and extend the IP joints. And for passive exercise, simple, hand is placed on thigh or any soft flat surface with palm facing upward, and passively we do this exercise for the patient. You can see this in the photograph. First is the active exercise and second the passive. Passive may, if the patient develops any contractures, then we passively stretch the fingers away. Next is the medial nerve and radial nerve deformities. This deformities, medial nerve, as you can see, a thumb occurs, and for radial nerve, wrist drop occurs. So for this median nerve, the thumb exercise, patient is asked to extend, abduct, and do the oppositions. And if he's not able to do, then we assist him to do the same. And if he's not able to do at all, then for him, we abduct and oppose the thumb passively. You can see this in the first and the second photographs. Active exercise and passive exercise for medial nerve. Next is the radial nerve. Radial nerve supplies the extensor compartment of the forearm, and obviously if the patient is doing the exercises for the radial nerve, so for active exercise we ask the patient, like in the second photograph, you can see first photograph, patient is asked to place his hand at the edge of the table and then ask him to extend the wrist. And if he's not able to do this, then okay, this is the active exercises. And for active assisted, the second photograph you can see, we extend or assist the patient to extend the wrist along with himself. And lastly, you can see the third photograph. This is also a type of wrist extension stretch. The patient is asked to place his hand over the table and then lean on it forwards. Then the wrist extensions are stretched automatically. These are the radial nerve exercises. Now next, the lateral popliteal nerve and posterior nerve deformities. If the lateral popliteal nerve is affected, then wrist drop occurs, and if the posterior tibial nerve is affected, then claw tools occur. So what all exercises we do? For lateral popliteal nerve, as I have discussed it earlier also, it supplies the dorsiflexors of the foot. So for active exercise, simply we ask the patient to dorsiflex and maintain the position for 15 to 20 seconds. And for active exercise, if the patient is not able to do, then we ask him to place his foot at the gravity eliminated position and ask him to dorsiflex his foot. And for passive exercise, we ask the patient to position in a long sitting, and the foot is dorsiflexed with the help of a towel or any TheraBand. For posterior tibial nerve, patient is positioned with affected leg resting on the thigh, and patient can use his another hand, like in the second photograph you can see, to stretch his toes. So first photograph is the passive stretching of for the lateral popliteal nerve, like dorsiflexus, and second is exercise for the posterior tibial nerve. Now next slide, and very important slide, this is the reconstructive surgeries in the leprosy. There are so many surgeries which are done if the patient has deformities. So these are the simple main surgeries I have listed for you all. Like for leg ophthalmos, if the patient is not able to close his eyes at all, then static procedure is done, that is tarsolaphy. Dynamic procedures, temporalis muscle transfer, and third simple lid closure. अब बहुत ज़्यादा leg ophthalmos है तो हम बहुत इसको ज़्यादा नहीं करते, simple lid closure हो जाता है. Next, claw hand and ape thumb. For claw hand, that is Zanculi lasso insertion technique is done, and for ape thumb, opponentsplasty is done. For wrist drop, there are so many tendon transfers like flexor carpi radialis transfer, flexor carpi ulnaris transfer, and third one is the Boyce transfer where palmaris longus is transferred. And last is the foot drop. For foot drop, there will be tibialis posterior transfer that we normally call as TPT, and transfer of peroneus longus tendon to the toe extensors, and with lengthening of the tendo Achilles. So these are the main RCS reconstructive surgery procedures which are to be done for treating deformities, for correcting deformities. So here our role comes. So what we do for pre-op physiotherapy. So pre-op physiotherapy is very important. Pre-operative assessment we done. First, we assess all the nerve examination for the range of motion, muscle power, its function, difficulties, and everything. Then we test for any contractures. If there are contracture or tightness, then we give splints and stretching exercise. We also give strengthening exercises to the weakened muscle through isometric or resisted exercises. And most importantly, strengthening for the specific muscle which are to be transferred. And active assisted and active movements are to be done to maintain joint flexibility before the surgery. And for all these, our modalities also help, like we can get help from wax therapy, TENS, and ultrasound. And to maintain skin soft before the any kind of surgery, we do soaking, scrapping, and oiling, which I will be telling you in detail later on. So post-op physiotherapy. Now, after the operation, there is always a plaster period or immobilization period. Like it changes from different to different, but अगर simply बोला जाए तो there is 4 weeks for hand and 6 weeks for foot. And what are the aims of post-op physiotherapy? As any physiotherapy, post-op physiotherapy, these are the main aim, like to improve the range of motion after surgery, to re-educate the muscle which are being transferred, to regain the functional activities, and improving the activities of daily living, and lastly, vocational rehabilitation. So simply, I'm giving just a brief idea for all simple reconstructive surgeries. So for claw hand, we do Zanculi lasso insertion technique for claw hand. Here, the flexor digitorum superficialis is passed through a pulley. A pulley is made on itself, and this mainly is done for improving MCP joint flexion. As you can see in claw hand में MCP joint hyperextension में चला जाता है. So to actually treat this hyperextension, insertion technique is done. After insertion technique, the MCP joint starts to flex and do these exercises. So this is Zanculi lasso insertion technique for claw hand. So after this, post-op splint is given in the lumbrical position. You can see in the photograph, the wrist is extended to 10 to 15 degree. MCP joint is flexed to 60 to 90 degree because we have to maintain this position. PIP and DIP are in full extension, and thumb is free. After this surgery, what are the post-op physiotherapy? As you all know, till week 4, the splint is given, the plaster cast is given. After that, the hand is maintained in the same position, very importantly. And this maintenance is done through a finger loop splint, which you can see on the screen. And just begin active ROM exercises out of splint, avoiding any kind of MCP joint एक्सटेंशन, एमसीपी जॉइंट के एक्सटेंशन ना करा के सिर्फ इसी पोजीशन में सारी एक्सरसाइजेस करानी है. And week 6 extension of wrist is actively maintained. Extension of wrist affected जो होता है उसमें अब wrist extension करवानी है. And IP and DIP joint flexion are commenced. And after after weeks 6 to 12, simple all gripping exercises and graded resistance exercises for MCP joint flexion is to be done. Now for the reconstructive surgery for ape thumb or median nerve involvement agar hai, then there will be done opponent's plasty. What is opponent's plasty? Here flexor digitorum superficialis of ring finger or palmaris longus is transferred to abductor pollicis rings. In this, a splint is given, that is opponent's splint, where the wrist is neutral and thumb is in full opposition and IP joints of thumb are in extension. So after this also, from week 3 to 4, we commence our exercises. We begin simple active range of motion exercises of thumbs inside the thumb splint. And after week 5 to 6, prehension task and unrestricted range of motion exercises are started for thumb. And lastly, from weeks 7 to 8, all progressive resisted exercises has to be done after opponent's plasty. And now reconstructive surgery for wrist drop. Wrist drop, if the radial nerve is affected, then wrist is drop. These three kind of transfers, tendon transfers are there. First is flexor carpi radialis transfer. Second is flexor carpi ulnaris transfer. And last is Boyce transfer. All these transfer mainly are done for wrist extension. They all help in the wrist extension. So after this reconstructive surgery, post-op splint is given for 3 to 4 weeks in which the wrist is immobilized into 30 to 40 degrees of extension. Forearm is 30 to 90 degree of supination, and MCP joint in 10 to 15 degree of flexion, and PIPs are free. In this, after week 5 to 6, all the the exercises are started in the dynamic splint, and simple active range of motion and passive range of motion exercises are done for MCP joints, IP joints. After week 7 to 8, resistive exercises will be commenced, and passive wrist flexion is done to gain maximum pronator teres length. And after week 12, all the ADL activities and strengthening exercises are begun. Next is the reconstructive surgery for foot. If there is a foot drop, then very importantly, tibialis posterior is transferred to the tendons of extensor hallucis longus and extensor digitorum longus. Along with this transfer, there is very important lengthening of Achilles tendon is also done. So this is the reconstructive surgery for foot. Now we come to post-op physiotherapy. Simple, after 6 weeks of immobilization in a lower leg cast, exercises are commenced. Exercise should focus on regaining all the normal range of motion and strength. And then we get advanced to balance and functional exercises for the leg. Mobilizations are done, simple stiff joints are mobilized, and electrotherapy modalities are also used like ultrasound and neuromuscular electrical stimulation for muscle re-education. Then as foot is involved, then gait training has to be done after surgery for restoring normal walking, and any assistive devices are also recommended if the patient wants. And hot and ice packs are also given to improve the circulation and control swelling along the surgery site. And last surgery for the reconstructive surgery we will see for the eye. If there is legophthalmos, then these two kind of surgeries are to be done, tarsography and temporalis muscle transfer. In tarsography, you can see in the figure, there is simple joining of upper and lower lids by the help of sutures to close the eye. And second transfer is the temporalis muscle transfer. In this, the temporalis muscle is transferred onto the orbicularis oris lateral side, and for that, with the help of temporalis muscle, the patient will be able to close his eye. So after post-op, this kind of reconstructive surgery, very importantly, only soft diet is given to the patient for initial days, so that he will able to chew and swallow soft diet easily. Then patient is given a small piece of rubber or sponge to chew upon. The sutures around the eye are removed at 4 days, and the temporal sutures after a week. Eyelid edema also get absorbed after 3 to 4 days. Then chewing exercises are started, and chewing exercises are commenced like full voluntary closure is obtained in 2 to 4 weeks. And then patient must be taught to clench his teeth periodically while out in the open to mimic the blink reflex. Like when he will clench the teeth, then he will have the blinking of the eye. And lastly, and very importantly, care of the eye is advised. Now we have completed all the reconstructive surgery. Now next and very important part of physiotherapy comes for to educate the patient in the importance of self-care and techniques of self-care. As we all know that autonomic functions are also affected in leprosy, the patient will have loss of sensation and sweat. And if the patient is having loss of sensation or sweat, then the patient will develop blisters in the hand, dryness or cracks in the heel and the palm, and because of that, ulcer will occur, like you can see in the last photo. So for this, we do hope. Hope is a therapy. We simply call it HOPE, which full form is hydro-oleo-physical exercise therapy. First, in this, we teach the patient to inspect his hands and feet daily for any kind of blisters, red spots, warm spots, or tendon areas. Then we ask the patient to soak his hands and feet daily in water. As you can see in the picture, inside the tub, patient is soaking his hands and legs. You can also add little bit of salt, or if he's already having any kind of ulcers or blisters, then any antiseptic solution also can be added. So patient is asked to soak for 20 to 30 minutes. After soaking, the patient is taught to do scraping. Scraping of the skin, like to release all the scars or fissures of the hard skin using a pumic stone or simple brush. And after scraping and soaking, oiling, very importantly, oiling is done after soaking. Apply oil, any kind of oil or Vaseline is applied without, very important, without drying the part. Means patient don't have to dry the part after soaking. That part should be wet, and on the wet part, the oil or Vaseline is applied daily. So this all procedure comes under HOPE. Next and very important technique which we give in leprosy patient if he is having loss of sensation in the foot is our footwear, specialized footwear, which are called microcellular rubber footwear, or commonly known as MCR. MCR are specialized footwear which we give to all the leprosy patients. In this footwear, there are two kinds of sole, inner sole and outer sole. Inner sole is soft, very soft, which is made up of microcellular rubber, which have a tendency to absorb any kind of weight and to distribute the weight of the body evenly over the foot and over the sandal which he is wearing. So insole is soft, but the outer sole is hard. Outer sole is hard just because we protect the patient from any kind of stone or any kind of spike which can penetrate the sandals and irritate the foot of the patient, and he will not know about it. So importantly, outer sole is hard. And MCR always got a back strap. Back strap is for to reduce the shearing stress. And very importantly, there is no buckles involved in the MCR, only the Velcro, because buckles are made of metals and metal can cause any shearing trauma over the foot, and patient will not be able to judge that, and then it will also can lead to ulcer formation. And MCR are always according to the size of the foot. We measure the patient's foot, and after measuring, every kind of MCR are developed according to the patient's size of the foot. The MCR are never repaired with nails. Repairing is always done through a thread. And in our government setup, we give 2 pairs of MCR footwear every year to every patient. And there are various modifications also done in the MCR, like if there is any supination or pronation of foot, then we give medial heel rise. Or there is any ulcer present, then we give metatarsal pad. All these comes under the microcellular rubber, that is MCR footwear. Now, next and last and very important leprosy topic is leprosy reactions. There are 2 kinds of leprosy reaction which are commonly seen in lots of leprosy patients. Leprosy reaction is an acute inflammatory response which occurs during the course of disease. Leprosy reaction always develop on patients which have many lesions, and lesions which are close to nerve, lesion over the face, or during pregnancy. Leprosy reaction is important, very important. Why? Because if we don't treat it promptly, it can cause disability. And there are mainly, you can see 2 types of lepra reaction. Type 1 is called reversal reaction. It can occur in both multibacillary and paucibacillary leprosy. And type 2 is erythema nodosum leprosum. It occurs only in severe form of MD leprosy. So in this slide, in this table, you can see type 1 and type 2, how you identify between the two. In type 1, skin lesion, existing skin lesion, as you can see in the photograph also, existing skin lesion becomes swollen, more red, more warm and tender, and nerves are of the skin are enlarged, tender, become more painful, which means neuritis is happening, and no other organs are affected, and there will be no other general symptoms in type 1 type of lepra reaction. But in type 2, as you can see in another photograph, the regions will be red, painful, and there will be subcutaneous nodular lesions, especially in face, arms, and legs. Nerve may or may not be affected, but other organs are affected in type 2. This makes it more dangerous, like eyes, joints, bone, testes, and even kidneys can be affected in type 2 type of reaction. And general symptoms are there like fever, joint pain, and fatigue. So what we do, how we manage these lepra reaction? Medical management are steroids. Simply prednisolone in the name of Visolone are given to the patient in a tapering dose, and symptomatic treatment like for fever and for pain, drugs are given. But for us, physiotherapy management, simply we give resting of the affected limb in the acute phase. For acute phase of lepra reaction, splinting is given, especially at night. Like I have mentioned some splinting procedures, like under nerve, elbow is flexed to 90 degree. For median nerve, अगर splint करना है तो wrist is extended to 40 degree. For lateral popliteal nerve, splinting is given with the knee flexed to only 10 degree, and posterior tibial nerve, ankle is protected in the neutral position of 90 degree. After the acute phase, once the pain of the acute phase has reduced, then you can give passive stretching of any weakened muscle and active exercises to help strengthen the weakened muscle and to preserve joint mobility. And lastly, which we have discussed before also, soaking and oiling of dry skin always helps to prevent cracking and preserving the integrity of the skin and epidermis. These are the other modifications of appliances which we normally give for leprosy patient. If the patient is not able to hold the spoon properly, then we give a broader handle spoon, as you can see in these two photographs. And next, we also give appliances for holding the soap, and we make uh, broader the tip of the pen to help him hold the pen effectively. And if he has lost his digits at all, then these kind of cup or mugs are given for patients. And lastly, I would recommend everybody to please know that leprosy is a disease. It is not the curse of God, which still is believed in our country. Leprosy is completely curable and treated in time, and if full course of treatment is available free of cost in all the government hospitals and health centers. And disabilities and deformities caused by leprosy are corrected through reconstructive surgery, self-care, and physiotherapy. Here I would like to take names of my all fellow physiotherapists who are working in National Leprosy Eradication Program in MP: Dr. Swati Pandya, Dr. Priyanka Atulkar Dandel, Dr. Rajneesh Kangra, and Dr. Neeraj Soni, and myself. We are five of us, and we all are working for leprosy patient in whole of the MP. So we know through our care, through our treatment, we are really treating the disabilities and decreasing the deformities in the leprosy patient. And last but not the least, always accept the person affected leprosy in the society, and please do not do any kind of discrimination with them. I hope my uh, my webinar is helpful and given knowledge for you all for leprosy physiotherapy, and I hope I have not disappointed you all. Thank you so much. Over to you, Himanshu.
Thank you, and thanks a lot for such a wonderful and elaborative session on the leprosy. You have covered all the areas of leprosy, from its etiology to the management. Even management has been also very much well categorized in the proper way. So we are really grateful to you, ma'am, for sparing such a great information on the platform. And if you allow, ma'am, can we go ahead for the question answers?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Brother, it was a great explanatory session. Still, I would like to request all the participants, if they have any question, they can ask. And there are a few questions in the chat box also, ma'am. I think there are a few of your previous students also joined us.
Yeah. Yes, my students have also joined. Yes. So happy to see all of them.
Yes, sir. So, can you go through the chat box, or I should narrate it for you, the questions?
Please.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, I'll narrate it for you, don't worry.
Okay.
There's one question from Aza Aren: warm water
Okay.
or cold water?
And it's very important. Thank you. Thank you for putting up this question. There is not warm or not cold. Simple water which comes from the tap, or like a water which comes through a hand pump. You know what kind of temperature is that. So we don't give any hot water or nor any cold water, because the patient previously having loss of sensation. So either cold or hot water will affect his sensation and cause burns. So simple tap water is used for home therapy. Yes.
Thank you, and thanks a lot. And we are receiving so much great compliments in the chat box from the participants of the overseas. Even though in this great session we're also blessed to be having many our previous resource person with us here. Dr. Namrata Singh ma'am is also joined us, and she want to convey their regards and best compliments to you for this session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Namrata. And thank you so much for everyone for having patience and listening me. in this topic, because I know this is a very untouched topic and people don't know much about leprosy. Yes.
So thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. It was a wonderful session. We had we are having outstanding comments in the chat box, the great feedback, and it was really a great learning ahead in this session. And we are blessed to have many senior faculty members who has joined us here. Dr. Amita Anup Sharma, ma'am. She is the senior physical therapist at Dubai, Yanubu. She is also joining us. And my own teacher, Dr. Charu Sharma ma'am, is joining us long away from the Washington, USA. Dr. Priyanka Mangal is joining us from the USA itself. Dr. Kalpana Jutsi ma'am is joining us from the Delhi. Dr. Kalpana Jutsi is an associate professor in the Jamia Ahmedabad University, Delhi. Dr. Jiten Munjal sir is also the senior physical therapist at the North DMC Medical College in the Delhi. And many other senior physical therapists and academicians had also joined us. Few participants also joined us from the Bangladesh, few are from the Pakistan. So it was a great session, and we are having a very good number of participants from the overseas also. And thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for a great session.
Thank you,
At the
Himanshu.
end,
Thank you so much.
at the
I
end,
know I have troubled you today, but thank you so much for everything.
no, it is my pleasure and my duty also. Thanks a lot. And we are really
Thank you.
grateful to you. And we would hope for such contribution in future too, if it is feasible to you. And again,
Yeah, sure.
I would request all the participants. Tomorrow we are having a great session on the success avenues for physical therapists. I had already shared the YouTube link here. On that YouTube link, you can go and press the bell button. Then you can get a notification. Also share the link to register. Though you can join us tomorrow live on the YouTube. So there would be no limitation to join. We can share it to all, and we would be gonna having good interaction, good discussion on how one physiotherapist can become a renowned author, and how a physiotherapist can be successful in the competitive examination like PSC examination. So because many of the physiotherapists are aspiring for the public service commissions and all, so that can be some eye-opening facts for them. So thanking you all, and grateful to all the participants for their continuous support, faith, and really delighted and blessed to have all the faculty member and teacher to be with us continuously. Feeling so much honored, and thanks to you, ma'am, from the core of my heart, Priyanka ma'am. We are really grateful to
Thank
you,
you.
and you are such a nice, humble, and great person. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Himanshu.
Thank,
Thank
thanks a lot.
you.